Apple shares have fallen by about 8% in Europe after the company announced disappointing results after the close in New York on Wednesday. Well, Ben Rooney and Martin Essex are here with me to look at why this all happened. Martin, first of all, 8%, that's a pretty hefty drop.
Yes, I mean, they dropped around 8% in after-hours trading on Wednesday, and that's confirmed by the trading in Frankfurt this morning. So the shares are likely to open on NASDAQ when at the official open about 8% down at about $470. Now, to put that in context, they peaked last September at over $700. So they've lost, very roughly, by my calculations, $200 billion overall in that period.
Just a fraction, just a little bit there. But Ben, tell me.
Pretty shocking, isn't it?
It's pretty shocking. The company actually sold in the last quarter 18 million iPhones and iPads. That's hardly a bad thing. Why this bad?
No, it sold considerably more than that. It's up on that. It sold just under 50 million iPhone 5s, and it did pretty well on the iPad. It beat its expectations, 23 million. I think the problem here is that it missed its target on the iPhone 5. I mean, it still sold 50 million, or just under, and we're going to have Nokia figures in a minute, so they would have sold their grandmothers for, they probably already have, for those kind of figures. So I think we need to be careful here before it's all gloom and doom and run around like our hair's on fire. I mean, if you look at Apple's share price over the last 5 years, it's been pretty meteoric with this little falling off at the end.
Is this because the company, essentially, we know iPad 5 was great, as you said, but still not as good as some people expected it to be? And do you think it's like losing momentum here, that they're not producing the products that people want fast enough?
I think one of the issues is basically everyone who's going to buy, in the developed market, everyone who's going to buy an iPhone has bought one pretty well now. And so the question therefore for Apple is, how does it expand? Now it's looking into China, sees China as a great growth margin, a great growth market. It did 14 billion sales into the US and only 6 into China, so it's hopeful that it can expand into there. The problem for Apple is, Apple has always, right throughout its history, been a niche top-end product, and so it occupies this much of the market, and then beneath it there's all of this, and it doesn't really address that sector. And people like Samsung are moving heavily into there, and that's the area that Nokia has always.
It's worth mentioning too that the brokers are quite optimistic now about the future of the stock price. So even though it's now likely to open down at $470, I saw that 2 brokers this morning, Citigroup saying 500, UBS saying 600. So it's certainly not fair to say anybody's writing off Apple at the moment.
I mean, it's the case that it just it's had a shakeout now, and the shakeout's over.
It was a stock market darling, and what always happens with stock market darlings is
you run out of love.
They get knocked off their pinnacles eventually.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think long term, I think you have to say, you know, the long term, Apple must be the most over-analysed stock in the world. And if you look at the long-term trends of technology, we're not going to, I mean, don't invest in coal, invest in technology. We're not going back to steam engines. And there are all sorts of technologies that are coming up that Apple is almost certainly going to be a big player in. So I think we have to be slightly careful.
I mean, it's worth also putting this in the context of the wider market and the fact that we've seen a run-up and that people are also, general sentiment is not quite so hot as it has been.
Well, just very short term, the US markets are probably going to open roughly flat. You might have expected them to go higher because the general economic background looks better. I mean, for example, we're now seeing that all the debt ceiling problems sort of pushed into later in the year. You might have expected a bounce. I think very short term, Apple's just going to keep the market just flat at the moment.
Martin, Ben, thank you both very much indeed.